Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Warships replay, and today we have the Tier 5 US battleship, the New York. Now, the USS Texas from the New York class is the, I believe, last surviving dreadnought battleship in the world. It participated in pretty much every theatre the Americans were in, including the naval bombardment of Normandy. The New York is armed with 5 twin turrets, or 5 double turrets I should say. Twin turrets and doubles are a bit different. Doubles can elevate their guns independently, twins can only elevate both guns the same amount at once. So most battleships have independently elevating guns as far as I'm aware. The 14 inches do lack a bit of punch compared to the higher tier battleships, but you do have quite a heavy broadside for your tier with 10 guns. Keeping in mind this tier 5, at tier 5 the Congo gets, I think it's 8 14-inch guns, and the Fuso, the next tier up at tier 6, gets 12 14-inch guns. So it's not too bad of primary armament. The New York, like most battleships, particularly the older US battleships, starts with barely any anti-aircraft defense, but once you get the Second World War era hull upgrades, it gets quite a decent amount for its tier. Now, another interesting point with these lower tier US battleships is their short-range secondaries. A lot of the Japanese battleships have secondaries that go out to 5 kilometers range unmodified. Obviously you can get upgrades that take it out to about 7. The US battleships below, I think about tier 7, tier 6 or 7, only have 3 to 4 kilometers range. So you've got to really get in close if you want to hit things with your secondaries, and you don't have a whole lot of them either. The New York is, like all the other US low-tier battleships, slow. However, it's also turny. It has a relatively quick rudder shift, and it turns in a very, very tight circle, much like Warspite does. And this is a big advantage when dealing with destroyers and torpedo bombers and really any kind of aircraft or attack, because you can just swerve well out of the way. It also gives you some advantage when it comes to long-range engagements, because you can swing your ship back and forth to alternate between broadsiding people and then pointing your nose at them. So here we see a burning Tenryu that used to be called the Tatsuda, but was renamed. It seems Wargaming have done a lot of renaming. I guess they keep getting the names of certain ship classes wrong. There's another Tenryu in the background. I decide to go for him, he's the easier target, and I take some fire from my left as I do so. Shots land a little too far in front. He's not travelling very quickly, it seems. So I fire another couple shots at him before refocusing towards the centre of the map. This guy's probably going to burn to death, sure enough. So I fire my loaded guns at the enemy South Carolina. South Carolina doesn't have much in the way of armor. It also doesn't have much in the way of speed or guns. It's a very vulnerable ship. And so, although he may not be the most threatening of the enemy battleships, he's the easiest to deal with. Here we've got a Yubari though. He's charging in towards us. So while I have the opportunity, and hopefully before he can launch his torps at us, I decide to engage him. Get a decent citadel hit in there. It nearly finishes him. He's down to 30 hit points, but I've got to wait for my guns to load before I can finish him. As you can see, my secondaries only start firing once he's within 4 kilometers, and there's not really much way of fire going out. But one of my teammates is able to hit him with a wall of torps, which makes my life a lot easier. putting shots towards the South Carolina now, and there's the Citadel hit.
Target penetrated.
Like I said, this thing isn't exactly fast. Its top speed is somewhere around 20-21 knots. I think it's about 20. So it doesn't get anywhere in a hurry. If you want a fast battleship, you're going to have to wait until the Tier 8 on the US tree, the North Carolina. If you want a fast battleship in low tiers, you really need a Japanese ship. These two geniuses have managed to crash into each other and are barely moving, if they're even moving at all, and so they are easy meat. They are slowly pulling off of each other, but they've been slowed down enough and in front of enough guns that they're not likely to come out of this with very many hit points left. You can see my anti-aircraft guns engaging the enemy fighters, which are circling around behind me. Enemy carrier is spotted, that's the Bogue, Tier 5 carrier. They have two Tier 5 carriers, the Bogue and the Zuiho. Decide to engage the closer of the two New Yorks, as he's turning to shortly give me a full broadside shot at him. And he's also occupied by somebody else right now, so I don't have to worry about his guns pointing at me. But I switch targets again when I notice this guy is very clearly pointing his guns at me. He's also lower on health. He makes a sharp left turn into the blue line. I'm not sure what he was expecting to achieve from that, but it makes my shots all that much easier, and I get two Citadel hits.
Enemy heavily damaged.
10k apiece. So that's him crippled. He's also stuck pretty firmly on the blue line. He is not going anywhere soon. Except the bottom. Unfortunately, those shots missed, but I will have some more ready in a moment, and he's just in such a vulnerable position. If I don't kill him, eventually somebody else will. And there it goes. Switching back to the other New York, who's now nearly dead, still on fire. Boom.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
We're now left with a Myogi in range, everything else is out of range. And if you look at the minimap, you can see I'm about to carelessly crash into the blue line, just like the puppies did. Managed to take out the
Enemy
Myogi.
battleship foundered.
Both carriers are spotted, but both carriers are out of my range. So I make a turn off of the blue line so I can actually get moving again, and start to head in the general direction. Now you may wonder why I'm not using my repair ability. The reason for that is that it's got like almost an expiration timer, so if it's been more than a certain amount of time, and I don't know what that amount of time is, sorry, since you've taken damage, it won't work. So you really need to use it or lose it, essentially. And sometimes I just elect not to use it, because you do have a limited number of them, usually 4. So sometimes it's worth just keeping a bit of damage on you instead of repairing a small amount and then not having it when you need it. The enemy Zuiho is for some reason steaming towards me. He is now well and truly in my gun range. And so I fire most of my broadside in a sweeping curve where I think he's about to go. And that sure worked.
We've sunk an enemy aircraft carrier.
Managed to pick up 3 awards off of that one broadside, one salvo. It wasn't a full broadside. And now I go for the Omaha. Now, something worth noting, if you look at the little silhouette of my New York in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see some sort of flat platform where the third gun turret is. Now, what that actually was on the real ship was, I think it was an aircraft catapult.
Enemy cruiser foundered.
And so, although this thing historically did have the capacity to launch aircraft in World of Warships, it does not. I am not sure of the reason. It's not a tier thing because the tier 5 Congo gets a scout aircraft, as does the tier 6 Fuso. The Americans don't get them until I think it's tier 7 with the Colorado. Then again, the range on their guns is so short, I'm not really sure they need them. You don't pick up any kind of appreciable gun range until you actually get to the North Carolina. Enemy Bogue is turning, he's within my range, so I take the shots. This game is pretty much ours, it's just a case of how long it takes me to kill this guy. Other than our carriers, I'm the only thing left alive on my team, but this guy is pretty much defenseless. Now, the interesting thing about the Bogue is that it's quite easy to citadel for a carrier. Most carriers you have to hit very specific places to citadel them. Often, pretty much anywhere in the front half of the ship will do nothing, whereas the rear half, very close to the waterline, will. The Bogue, it seems no matter where you hit it, you're likely to citadel it. I am not entirely sure why. I'm pretty sure it was built on a cruiser hull, I'm not sure what class. That might have something to do with it, but I don't know. Perhaps I'm hitting the bomb room for the aircraft. Anyway, as he turns once again to expose his full side to my fire, I wait for my guns to load so I can finish this match. Got a couple long shots in there, but that's okay. And you can see his dive bombers heading for me. Too little, too late. But that's the last moves of a desperate defensive carrier. And it is all over for him.